Hello guys, in this video we'll take a look at C# tuple syntax. It's very nice syntactic sugar which provides concise syntax for grouping multiple elements into a single lightweight structure. It's especially useful when we need to return multiple values from a method where we don't want to create a new type. We have had tuple types in C# for a long time, but it didn't have any language support. Starting with C#7, Microsoft added language support for tuple types. Now let's take a look at the example where we can use and where we can utilize C# tuple syntax. Suppose we have a method here and we want to return minimum and maximum values from a given array. For now, I just kept the return type void, but let's think about it. What we can do here, we can introduce like out parameters here, out max and out min, but it won't be any elegant way of doing this. We want to return value from this method, so we can create a new type, but it would be like abundant work to create a new type to represent minimum and maximum values. In .NET version 4, we have been introduced tuple types. Let's use tuple types for these use cases. So tuple, we will have two items here, two integers, and from method we can create new tuple and we can return minimum and maximum values. Now let's just invoke this method. Let's say result. Let's give some array here. Now if you take a look at the result here, we can see it has item 1, item 2. So this is very useful type to represent multiple values, to group multiple values into single type. And here item 1 will be minimum value and item 2 will be maximum value. Starting with C#7, we have been introduced tuple syntax. Now it has direct language support. Syntax for representing tuple is like this. We use parentheses here and we specify element item types. For this case, we will have two integers, so int. From here, we can just return new, not new, but like parentheses, minimum and maximum. Now let's take a look at the result. We still have here item 1, item 2, and with tuple syntax, we can give the name to our items here, like let's say minimum, maximum. Now if you call result, we will see here minimum value, maximum value. Let's just print this to the console. Result minimum value, result maximum value. Let's run this. Now you see minimum value, maximum value we have here. You might think that compiler is going to generate this tuple type behind the scenes, but that's not the case. Actually, compiler is going to generate another type. It is value tuple, not tuple. So what are the differences between tuple and value tuple? Tuple is reference type. Tuple is immutable. Once we create a tuple, we cannot change the items, but value tuple is mutable. We can change items in value tuple. And also in tuple, all the elements is stored as a property, whereas in value tuple it is stored as public fields. Now let's just check, for example, if I create a tuple with tuple type, not value tuple type. Let's say I have two items here, like 7 and 8. New tuple. Now after creating tuple type, I cannot change value. If I try to reassign this, I will get compiler error because it is read-only. But if you make it value tuple, I can easily change the values. Now let's take a look at what compiler generates for us. We already know it creates value tuple, but let's just be sure about this. Let me build a solution and let's open generated assembly file in .pick is an application to decompile C# source code. If I go to .pick, open assembly, learning tuples.exe, here if you take a look at the source code of program class, for that we need to right click and click decompile source. Here you can see for the method get min and max, we have return type value tuple, and here we have one more attribute generated to describe the names of elements, the names of items, in this case minimum and maximum, because here we give the name for tuple elements. For example, we don't have to give the name for all elements, like we can just give elements for minimum, and in that case the second item is going to be named item2 by compiler. Let's just check, and if I rebuild and if I reopen again this assembly, let's now check generated source code. On program class decompile source code, here you can see on the applied attribute we have a name for minimum value, but for maximum we have just null because we didn't give any name. And also these names are for compiler just track these names, so it's just convenient way for us to work with IntelliSense. But on the runtimes we lose all these names and they become again item 1 and item 2. That's why if we serialize tuple values for the field names, we are going to get item 1, item 2 instead of minimum, maximum. Let's just check this. Let me give the name again for this maximum, and let's say I want to serialize this. Let's create a variable for this JSON serializer. We use JSON serializer from system.text.json, and let's serialize result. If I print the result to console, let's see what we are going to get. So we get empty string because by default JSON serializer serializes only properties, but value tuple that's generated by compiler store all these items as a public field. That's why it's not going to be serialized by default. For that we need to give serializer options, and here there's a property include fields, and let's make it true. Now these tuple should be serialized. Let's check. Yep, great. Here you see the elements name are item 1, item 2, because on the runtime we are going to lose these names minimum and maximum. It is just for our convenience when we work on Visual Studio to see the meaningful names on IntelliSense. Now let's take a look at what we have inside value tuple. So if you go to implementation, as we can see we have here struct, so it is value type, but in tuple type, which was introduced in .NET 4, tuple types are reference type classes, but value tuple are value types, structs. Here we see we have two public fields for item 1 and item 2, and it also implements iEquitable interface, which gives us value-based equality. Now let's check value-based equality in tuples. So for now let's just get rid of this and let's create a tuple. Let's say tuple 1. As we know, we use tuple literal to create tuples with parentheses. Here let's give a number and like some text. If I create the second tuple and if they will have the same values, so let's print to the console like t1 equals t2, so it's going to give us true, because as for value-based equality, it's going to just check first item in the first tuple with second item in the second tuple, and same the second item in the first tuple with the second item in the second tuple. If they are all equal, so these two tuples are going to be considered as equal. So that's value based equality in tuples. Now let's check another syntax for tuples. So when we create tuples with tuple literal here, we can also specify names, like let's name it age, and let's name it like name. So if you take a look at this, now we have, you see here name and age. When we create tuple in C#, by default compiler is going to give names like item 1, item 2. That's why we need to explicitly specify the names for the tuple elements. And also in some cases C# compiler can infer tuple element names. It is when, for example, when we construct tuple from local variables or class properties. Let's just try it. Let's say we have two variables, like let's say speed and width, and if we construct this tuple from these variables, let's say speed, width, and if you take a look at t1 tuple 1, we will see compiler is already inferred the names from local variables. Here we have width and we have also speed. And also for this tutorial I've already created person class. If I create person class, let's say new person, first name, let's give some first name, last name. If I construct tuple from this class properties, like let's say from first name and from last name, compiler is also going to infer from class properties. Let's just quickly check on T1. We have here first name, last name. And one last thing about tuple syntax, let's take a look at deconstruction syntax. So let's invoke this method again, get min max, and assign the result to result variable. Get min max, let's pass it some array like 1 and 2. So as you can see in this syntax, we are returning tuple and assign to result variable, and from result we can access tuple elements like minimum, maximum, but we can also use deconstruction syntax. In this syntax we can extract tuple elements into separate variables. Let's say for that, after var keyword we need to put parentheses here, and let's say min and max. In that case, the first element in the tuple is going to be assigned to min variable. It's a local variable here, and the second item is going to be assigned to max variable. So if I print the values to the console, that's a min and the max, you will see the results like 1 and 2. This syntax is called deconstruction. I think that's all about tuple syntax. So basically you can return a tuple from method, or method can accept as a parameters, and also we can also construct the list of tuples. Like you can use it as any other types. So that's all about tuples. If you like the videos, please subscribe my channel, and see you in the next videos, guys.